Hey, Jack. Thanks for taking the time to meet with me today. As someone who spent 15 years in senior positions in state government, I certainly appreciate the challenges that go along with public service. For that reason, I'm happy to be here today representing ADP. With 810,000 clients and 140 countries around the globe, ADP is a clear leader, not just in payroll, but in human capital management. Of those 810,000 clients, approximately 5,000 of them are in the public sector, and this is just a few of them. There's a school superintendent in Virginia who likes to say, the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. It's kind of a silly little phrase, but I like it because it highlights 2 points. One is that those who are good at keeping the main thing, are generally pretty equipped to hit the bullseye. On the other hand, we live in a world of limited resources, which makes it challenging to keep the main thing, because we're simply pulled in too many different directions. For that reason, I've always been impressed with NASA. NASA did a main thing analysis that surprised me. Growing up, I always thought that NASA's main thing was rocket ships and space shuttles. Turns out I was wrong. In 2011, NASA retired its entire fleet of space shuttles. These days, NASA effectively Ubers to space. In their main thing analysis, NASA determined that how astronauts get to space was not important. For NASA, the main thing is science. And while that conclusion was surprising to me, fortunately for us, when it comes to city schools, the main thing analysis is neither controversial nor surprising. Every school leader I talk to says the same thing. The main thing for schools is improving student outcomes. Of course, when we talk about student outcomes and focusing on the main thing, inevitably we talk about the challenges that have to be overcome. First and foremost, in my experience, is limited resources. Whether it's human or financial resources, every school suffers from the inability to have enough resources to do all that needs to be done. Secondly, legacy technology is a huge burden. A 2019 Deloitte study echoes this observation, but the main takeaway is just that legacy technology is more expensive to manage and maintain. The people who are managing and maintaining it today are the ones who are retiring. And finally, those systems, many of them which are architected decades ago, are poorly equipped to meet the needs of an organization like the Baltimore City Public Schools in the year 2020. But let's just take a quick look at each of those 2 challenges in a little bit more detail. So I recognize that Baltimore City Schools may be a little different. The city of Baltimore has suffered population decline over the past 4 decades, and with that decline in population has resulted in a declining enrollment in the city schools. Of course, when we talk about declining enrollment in schools, inevitably we talk about shrinking budgets and staff cuts. In that kind of environment, it can be difficult to positively impact student outcomes. Of course, we can help. We can help you find ways to save money, to engage your faculty, and positively impact student outcomes. I know it sounds crazy, but what you do in the back office can and does impact the classroom. Second, we talked about challenges related to legacy technology. When your solutions are in silos, as they are today, and they get stitched together in a way that creates seams, that's terribly inefficient. According to PwC, an organization the size of the City of Baltimore Public Schools wastes and upwards of $2 million just managing and maintaining those seams. And of course, the seams aren't the only areas that leak money for Baltimore City Public Schools. Each of those individual solutions has its own cost associated with it. Just take one, for example, time and attendance. If you're collecting time manually, as you are today, on average, you're giving each employee an extra 10 unearned hours each year. Those hours add up. For Baltimore City Schools, it's roughly $2.5 million. And as I said, there are costs associated with the other programs as well. But rather than spend the valuable time that we have here talking about each of those costs, I want to make a point that's slightly different and just as important. And that's that not all costs are financial. For example, if you're not automating leave management, you're missing an opportunity to positively impact student outcomes. What I mean by that is that teacher attendance and student outcomes are correlated. And when teachers are absent at a high rate, student scores go down. And the inverse is true as well, which is when teacher absences are down, when teachers are in classroom, student participation and student outcomes go up. So as you look at those challenges and consider the strategies before you, I'm sort of wondering, which way do you go? You may not know, but if your choice is to continue on an ERP strategy, we can help. There's a lot of things we can do around the edges that will impact your bottom line budget and help you improve student outcomes. On the other hand, if you're looking at an integrated human capital management solution, that's where we can make a real impact. And I'd like to talk to you about that at a later date. But what I want to say is, in conclusion, I want to talk about next steps. If the main thing is too big to tackle, let's find one thing that we can do. One service, one process, one solution that we can improve. Let's find one thing that saves you money, makes you more efficient, and produces better student outcomes. With that in mind, what I'd like to do is I'd like to suggest that we schedule a discovery analysis call. At this call, I bring in a business consultant with a technical background to map out where you are today, where you'd like to be, and how we may be able to help. Independent of whatever path you take, I'm confident that the report that comes from that meeting will serve you well. What do you say about scheduling a discovery analysis meeting?